Hi, I'm John Longstreet with another edition of PRLA Short Takes, and I'm delighted to have with me today my good friend Court Williams, who is the Chief Executive Officer of HVS Executive Search, which is one of the foremost search networks for hotels and restaurants and other hospitality positions in the world. And Court, a lot of your business over the years, of course, in executive search, is looking for high-level positions within the hotel and restaurant business. And I'm imagining that things have changed quite a bit in the last 90 days or so. How has this pandemic changed the way the things that you're looking for in the hospitality industry?
Well, first, John, thanks for having me on today. We're just seeing a lot of new trends and changes in organizations given the pandemic. I'm seeing CEOs and HR leaders really take a hard look at their organizational structure. And we're seeing a lot of role consolidation. So new positions being created, which will really help with efficiency and labor cost control. There's certain percentage of the positions are being replaced by technology, but it's no new news that there's a huge available talent pool of leaders who are available through furloughing, as well as being laid off. So there's a trend towards leadership upgrades as well. I mean, leaders are being tested today as they manage through this pandemic. And those that are doing it successfully will continue to be successful, but quite honestly, those that are having difficulty very well could be replaceable. So we're seeing a lot of that as well.
If I may, Court, does that mean to say that when you say leadership upgrades, is that because there is unfortunately a little bit of an excess of talent now compared to what there was, that companies are using that opportunity to try to bring in maybe higher level leaders in positions?
Exactly, John. I think, because there's been a contraction of the workforce, in some cases up to 80% of the workforce in some of these organizations, this is a very good time to sort of assess their talent and where they could make improvements through, as I mentioned, role consolidation, or just upgrading the positions with better talent. Quite honestly, those that have been furloughed that were marginal to begin with very well may not be coming back, and companies will rehire with just better talent because there is availability out there. And as I tell my clients, now is a tremendous time to take a look at your organizations, assess the roles, and perhaps consolidate again the positions. And we're doing a lot of advisory work on that. That's one thing that certainly has shifted from our practice, as well as just advising clients, overall on just trends. When's the good time to hire? What positions are being changed and consolidated? And organizations are going to look quite a bit differently post-pandemic.
So along those lines, you talked about leadership upgrades and how things are going to look different. What are you finding are the leadership positions that are most in demand today in the hospitality industry based on the pandemic?
Yeah, well, certainly the CEO level, we've done a few during the pandemic, and it's an opportunity for boards to make those changes, and certainly CEOs that have led turnarounds. And in some cases, there's a lot of mergers, acquisitions going on out there in both the hotel and restaurant space. So those that have led through that. CFOs, we've got a couple going right now that, and they're really looking for those that have private equity experience, because private equity still is cash flush and opportunities out there. So CFOs that have worked well with private equity and have led through mergers and acquisitions, we're seeing some interest there. IT, of course, IT even pre-pandemic, was an area of great demand, even more so today. And we can't look past training, training and development. I mean, those that can put together design programs for safety, sanitation, deliver those programs in all hospitality verticals. We're seeing an uptick in training, and certainly more strategic HR leaders. We've seen that as well. Those that can really take a look at their organizations and be true. I use the word consigliere to their CEOs to help them work through the myriad of people issues that are going on right now. I think on the development front, those that we're seeing a consolidation actually on the hotel side. There's development which may be selling third-party management contracts that now will include acquisitions and underwriting, and so it's just a broader based position. We've got 2 of those working right now, and then marketing, while it's slowed up a bit, and there's many that have been furloughed. When it does come back, and it's going to be all about digital for all the reasons. Certainly controlling costs and just more efficient. It's the way the world works today.
So if you're a marketing person, you better be up to speed on digital marketing.
You better be up to speed on digital, or it's not a bright future for you, for sure.
Hey, Court, speaking of bright futures, there's a lot of people right now that are thinking the future might not be bright because they have been either furloughed or their position's been eliminated totally. So they're looking for a new position. What's your specific advice to someone right now who's looking for a position? What should they be doing to get the attention of prospective employers?
Well, I think first, some of the core basics, make sure your LinkedIn profile is as good as it can be. And it's amazing. So many, key leaders in our industry have very, poor LinkedIn profiles. And believe me, your LinkedIn is going to be looked at. And so that's first and foremost. Obviously, be sure your resume, cites accomplishments and the bandwidth of the position that you're in. Everyone wants to know what you got done, and not a lot of fluff. So, get those 2 items in order. And then it's really about networking. Certainly firms like ours, people like yourself, John, leading an organization. It's really about networking, being patient, don't over communicate, and just leverage the contacts that you have and continue to self-improve. While there's downtime, learn a new skill. If you're rusty on digital, learn it. There's things that can be done now to improve your marketability.
Great advice, Court. Coming from you as one of the foremost experts on this subject in the world, I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about that. LinkedIn is huge.
It is.
And I tell people that all the time, and it was the first thing you mentioned. And networking, you think, well, it's hard to network because we aren't traveling now, but in some ways it's easier to network because it's so easy to get on a Zoom meeting like this.
Absolutely. People are more available now than ever, for sure. And even those executives that were hard to reach or may not have taken our calls about opportunities are today. So in many ways, there's, some improvements in that area. Us, like many firms, are off from last year, but, we're seeing an uptick. And, I'm an optimist by nature. I feel that we'll all come back in due time. May look a little differently, but we'll be back.
Yeah, it seems like at this time there are two kinds of people, optimists and pessimists. The optimists seem to be doing pretty darn well, particularly those that are opening restaurants, even at 50% capacity, are really doing well with it. And those that are wringing their hands, not surprisingly, are not doing so well. So, Court, at this difficult time, I really appreciate you taking the time to be with me today. The Court Williams, Chief Executive Officer of HVS Executive Search. Thank you so much, and as always, it's great to see you.
Great to see you, John. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. Well, that's it for another edition of PRLA Short Takes. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next time.